Part 7. Total ship collapse, reject rocks at the start. Author, Return Captain. Chapter 61. Inside the bridge of the Hyperion, AI bit her lip and crouched on the ground, sobbing slightly. You've gone too far, treating people so roughly. AI looked aggrieved, made a move with her little hand, and pulled out a roll of tissues from somewhere, wiping the tears that fell down. Looks weak, it really makes people feel pity. But unfortunately, Kiana, who was standing in front of her, was unmoved by this. Humph, don't pretend to be pitiful here, hurry up and explain honestly, is there any private collection? Kiana looked at AI with a fierce face. This little guy is so hateful that he dares to record that kind of thing. If it was an entity, it would definitely be a good beating for her. No, AI-chan is really gone. AI's little head shook like a rattle. There is no best, and if I find out that there is more, you will be out of luck. Kiana shook her fist and said demonstratively. AI shrunk her neck and looked at Rita, who was standing there. Rita, you don't count when you talk, you betrayed such a cute AI-chan. AI got up from the ground, crossed her waist with her left hand, and pointed at Rita with her right hand, with a deeply distressed expression on her face. I still believe in you so much. AI said with her right hand on her chest. AI-chan's young heart has been wounded by you. AI retreated again, and a sad song slowly floated out of the megaphone. AI-chan, Rita doesn't seem to have promised you to keep this kind of thing secret. Faintly, mercilessly, like a cold sword coming out of Rita's mouth, pierced AI's chest at once. The surrounding sounds disappeared in an instant, and AI tried hard to recall. Conversations flashed through her mind. It seems, that there is no such thing as secrecy. How's it going, do you remember? All the thoughts are just wishful thinking on your part. Naturally, a copy from you will be given to the captain as evidence. Burst. Hearing this, AI on the screen immediately vomited 3 liters of blood, and her body staggered to the ground. You devil. AI, who was lying on the ground, trembled and raised her right hand to point at Rita, wanting to cry without tears. Why was he so naive to believe the words of this demon? All right, that's the end of it. You're not allowed to do that again, you know. Hearing Arthur's words, AI on the screen instantly came to a full blood resurrection. The bloodstains disappeared in an instant, and they were neat again. Understood, Captain. Your words are the direction of AI-chan's progress, the guidance of life, the light on the way to the lost, and the only truth between heaven and earth. Seeing that Arthur was no longer pursuing it, AI immediately sent a serial fart, and finally breathed a sigh of relief. If Arthur is not happy and locks her in a small dark room, it will be sad. Well, the attitude of admitting mistakes is not bad, come to me in a while, and criticize you alone. Arthur nodded matter of fact and looked at AI with a serious face. I really didn't expect that AI would have such a function. In other words, any situation in the Hublien can be seen as long as you want. Wouldn't that be possible? Arthur's face slowly showed a smile that everyone understood. Although he can naturally see satisfaction if he asks, this kind of sneakiness has a different feeling. It's a good idea to try it once in a while. Captain, your thoughts are already written on your face. A faint voice sounded beside him. Rita stood in front of Arthur with a smile on her face, tidying up her neat clothes, but the words like an abyss slowly spat out of her mouth. Captain, you don't want AI-chan to be abused. How so? I'm a decent gentleman. Arthur held his head high, his face was righteous and awe-inspiring, but he was muttering in his heart. Rita is really keen, and the idea that just came to her mind was captured. Captain, do you think we'll take your word for it? Mei and Kiana looked at Arthur with disdain, they really thought they were 3 years old. Ahem, it's a nice day, I'll go take a look on the deck. Seeing the murderous aura in the eyes of the three people, Arthur immediately flashed with interest. He, Captain, if you want to see it, AI-chan can also help. Just standing on the deck, AI's voice came out carefully from the communicator on his wrist. We'll have a private chat about this in the evening. Seeing a figure flickering at the door of the cabin, Arthur lowered his arm and looked into the distance, as if he was a little melancholy. What are you looking at, Captain? Kiana jumped over and followed Arthur's gaze into the distance. However, it is just an endless sea, and there is no beautiful scenery. What's there to see? Kiana pouted a little incomprehensible. You don't understand, Kiana, this captain is looking at life. You see that the waves are fleeting, just like the shortness of life, only for a moment. Hearing such deep words, Kiana nodded as if she didn't understand. PSS. Arthur, who had been tense all the time, couldn't hold back any longer and laughed out loud. Ha ha ha, Kiana, it's so cute that you look so seriously thoughtful. Arthur said and pinched Kiana's face. Okay, you're captain, you dare to tease Miss Ben and look at the gun. No matter how stupid Kiana is, she has already reacted since then, and with her hands stretched, two guns appeared. Hey, Kiana, you're holding a real gun. Humph, with your cheekiness, Captain, even a real gun may not be able to penetrate it. With that, Kiana raised her gun and took aim. However, at Arthur's speed, how could the current Kiana succeed? Boom! The guns rang out, Arthur was unharmed, and in the sky, a newspaper gull fell like a meteor. Ah, I'm sorry, Miss Ben didn't mean to. An arrow rushed to the newspaper gull, and was relieved to find that only the wings had been slightly injured. Come, help you bandage it, it will be all right soon. Kiana scrambled to help the newspaper delivery gulls clean their wounds, but Arthur picked up the newspapers scattered on the ground. Are you going to act so soon? Seeing the contents of the newspaper, Arthur's eyes narrowed slightly. Captain, what's going on? Rita, who came out, saw the expression on Arthur's face and asked softly. It's the Rocks Pirates, let's go, our next destination, the Valley of the Gods. Women's auto? Spare me, I don't have such a heavy taste. Do you feel more excited to see a man? Total ship collapse, reject rocks at the start. Author, Return Captain. Chapter 62. The Valley of the Gods is the residence of the world's nobles Draconian. And the world government is in the hands of the Draconians, and Lox's target is naturally aimed here. Around the Valley of the Gods, although there is a navy stationed in peacetime, its strength is not very strong, and it only serves as a patrol and vigilance. And in the Valley of the Gods, there is the personal guard of the celestial dragons. Similar to members of CP0. Most of them are devil fruit abilities, powerful and serve as guards. I believe that no one would have imagined that such a place would suddenly be attacked by pirates. Rocks Pirates entered here with the power of devastation, and in an instant, captured the vast majority of the Draconians and slaves. And this news was transmitted on the sea like a wind. Headquarters of the Navy. As soon as Cyborg heard the news, he stood up from his stool in an instant. What did you say? Say it again. Even as a marshal, he didn't expect that Lox would be so crazy. Directly hijack the Draconians. As the pinnacle of the power of the world government, the Draconians cannot be harmed at all. It is also the duty of their navy to protect the Draconians. Yes, the Rocks Pirates suddenly broke into the Valley of the Gods and kidnapped a large number of Draconians and slaves. The navy in charge of the debriefing repeated the sentence again. Rocks Pirates. The steel bones clenched their fists and looked like they were gritting their teeth. He was planning how to eliminate the Rocks Pirates, and it turned out to be like this, and they were put on the back foot all of a sudden. With the celestial dragons as hostages, their navy did not dare to act rashly. Now that there was no time to hesitate, Cyborg immediately contacted Karp. Karp, who was on a mission outside, returned to the Navy headquarters as fast as he could. Something happened, so anxious for me to rush back. In the phone bug, Steelbone Sara did not explain the specific situation. It's the Rocks pirates. Cyborg told Karp in detail about the information he had gotten. What? Locke stared too. Karp was also a little shocked. They had always looked up to Locks, and now it seems that they still underestimated it. Capturing the Draconians is equivalent to kidnapping the world government. When the time comes, the sea will be up to him. Karp, the situation is urgent, I want you to set off immediately, everything is premised on the safety of the lives of the Draconians. To speed things up, you can only bring a handful of elites this time. It's already been arranged for you. Karp understood the current form, and nodded immediately. I'll contact the Roger pirates right away and head to the Valley of the Gods together. After all that is said. Strode away and turned away. Looking at Karp's departing back, Cyborg thought about it and took out a phone bug. I'd like to ask about Sengoku's physical condition. Outside. Dozens of navies stood neatly, with the lowest rank on their shoulders being Rear Admiral. These people have been fighting with Karp to suppress the Rocks pirates, and they are already very familiar with each other. Let's go. The group left the naval headquarters in a mighty manner and set off on a warship. And at this time, Karp took out a phone bug from his arms. This was the only way to get in touch with Roger. On the other side of the sea, a huge sailing ship slowly moved forward. Roger pirates. Roger sat cross-legged on the floor, wiping his long knife with both hands. Captain Roger, I already know why you agreed to work with the Navy. At this time, Spark, who was a navigator, came over again. During this time, Spark has been thinking about this question. Perhaps that's the only pleasure he's having at the moment. Today, he finally thought of it. Oh. Roger also came to interest, with his hands on his knees and his eyes on Spark. It's actually very simple, because Captain Roger wants to be the One Piece, then the Rocks pirates are the biggest obstacle. With the domineering of the Rocks pirates, if the forces around Roger become stronger, they will definitely come to recover them. And with Roger's pride, how can he be willing to be someone else's little brother? Although they are both pirates. But in fact it is already in a hostile position. Spark shared his analysis one by one, and Roger smiled when he heard it. Well, Captain Roger, did I guess right? Spark is absolutely confident that there is nothing wrong with his ideas. Pretty much, but there's another reason. Roger stood up from the deck, sheathed his long knife, and took a deep breath. Because the Navy has one thing there that I want. What's that? Spark was instantly interested. Signpost. Two faint words came out of Roger's mouth. Blue blue. The phone bug in my arm suddenly rang at this time. What happened? Roger was confident that Karp would not contact him until something major was done. The Rocks pirates have moved and immediately headed to the Valley of the Gods. Karp's short sentence was full of solemnity. Roger, we'll be there. A glint flashed in Roger's eyes and he shouted. Riley turned the rudder and headed for the Valley of the Gods. The massive hull gradually changes direction in the middle of the sea. And at the same time Hugh Bryan. Ai-chan, when will I be able to reach my destination? Arthur sat on the couch with a goblet in his hand and shook it gently. The red wine inside swirled quickly along the rim of the glass, but not a single drop spilled out. Captain, it's going to take a little more than a day at our current pace. It took another day, it seemed a little late. Arthur's brow furrowed. With such a major event, he didn't want to miss the best moment to see the excitement. Ai-chan, transform into airplane mode and get to your destination as fast as possible. Okay, Captain. Ai nodded, and the entire hull shook slightly. Airplane mode is activating, please stand still. Warm tips are conveyed from the megaphone throughout Hyperion. From a distance, you can see that the speed of the Hugh Brian driving in the sea is getting faster and faster, and its appearance is gradually changing shape as it advances. The first level push is underway. Two huge thrusters appeared in the stern of the ship. The secondary push is underway. The deformed ship became faster and faster, and finally gradually moved away from the surface of the sea and achieved low-altitude flight. 3 levels of promotion in the middle of the line. By this time, the appearance of the Hyperion had changed dramatically. Battleships in a cuboid shape hovered above the surface of the sea. Hyperion, airplane mode, activated. Su. The initial starting speed is beyond the reach of many all-out sailboats. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Total ship collapse, reject rocks at the start. Author, Return Captain. Chapter 63. Ha ha ha, I really didn't expect it to be so easy. Outside the palatial building, Lox laughed with his arms raised. And in the square in front of him was the captured Draconian. Hundreds of celestial dragons gathered in the square, dressed in uniform clothes, and at a glance, it looked like a sea of white. The other members of Lox scavenged the various precious treasures in the room, and their faces were excited. Before entering the Valley of the Gods, they thought that a fierce battle was waiting for them, but they did not expect that the defenses here would be so lax. Any one of them can easily break into it. Could it be that these celestial dragons are so proud that no one in this world will attack here? Indeed, that's what the Draconians think. What is this place? The Valley of the Gods, the place where the Draconians live, the apex of world power. Even if you give those bad people 10 guts, they don't dare to come here to spread wild. If it was usual, it was true, but now there is a Lox. A Lox with the goal of dominating the world. Powerful, crazy, and ambitious, that's what Lox is all about. What others dare not do, Lox dares. To control the Draconians is to control the world government, and now Lox has done just that. Outside, there's a navy coming. In the distance, a pirate with a large amount of wealth in his hands shouted. How many are coming? Shiki paused and took the lead in asking the question he was most concerned about. He had already guessed such a situation. The Draconians were captured, and the navy could not sit idly by, and it was possible to come out. There is only one. Shiji's face was slightly stunned when he heard the answer. Just a search, do you see that we are bored and give us time to pass the time? For the current Rox pirates, what can a warship do when it comes over? It can't set off any wind and waves at all. Hearing that only one warship was coming, everyone in the pirates didn't care, and focused all their attention on fighting for wealth. After all, everything here is worth a fortune. And on the warship, which was still some distance away from the Valley of the Gods, Carp picked up the phone bug again. Where are you? When will you arrive? Carp is basically aware of the situation here. The defense forces have all collapsed, and it can be said that the Valley of the Gods is under the control of Lox at this moment. We're already on our way, and we'll be there in half an hour. Roger's voice came from the phone bug. Putting down the phone bug and looking at the destination that was close at hand, Carp did not wait for Roger, but went straight into it. And at the same time, above, Hyperion also arrived. The invisible Hyperion was docked above the Valley of the Gods, with a panoramic view below. I didn't expect the place where the celestial dragons lived to be so vulnerable. There wasn't much damage around, so it was clear that Lox had an easy time getting in. Captain's ship, the celestial dragons who control the world, are they all so weak? Rita's gaze looked at the screen, which showed the scene of the Draconians being placed in the central square. At a glance, it can be seen that these celestial dragons are just ordinary people, and it seems that they are sorry for the status they have. Not really, these are just offspring. That is, the legendary rich second generation or something. The generation has already worked hard, they just have to enjoy it. Arthur didn't know much about the specific situation of the Draconians. But he believed that the Draconians must have something that would shock the world, their own force or something. Otherwise, it would be impossible to stay high above for hundreds of years. In this case, doesn't it mean that the celestial dragon people are not far from being destroyed? After all, the descendants are so unlucky. When Mei Yi first learned about the situation of the Tianlong people, she did have a lot of confusion in her heart. It feels a little unreasonable. Why would a powerful person bow down to the weak celestial dragons? If the tree supporting them falls, these people will naturally be wiped out in an instant, but unfortunately, this tree is now a little stronger. Such a big thing happened, so far Arthur has not seen the figure of the 5 old stars at all. Don't they care about the lives of these Draconians? Or do they have the confidence that the Navy can rescue these celestial dragons? Arthur didn't know exactly what he thought, but he knew one thing. For Locke's behavior, the 5 old stars can still hold their breath. It's not really deep. Arthur came to watch the play anyway, and he had no intention of interfering. Locks. A loud roar came in from outside, led by Carp, and the rest of the people followed on both sides, walking in without the slightest disguise. Ha ha ha, it turned out to be you, no wonder you dared to come over and die alone. Seeing that it was Carp, Locks looked up and laughed. It's an old friend. The Navy is still as waste as ever, so I sent you guys over. Dozens of warships can't help him, is it possible that only a dozen people are going to defeat him? Rocks? Edward had been sitting there lazily since he entered the Valley of the Gods, ignoring the riches, and only then did he act when he saw Carp bring people in. The other pirates also stopped their movements and stood around Locks. Locks. Looking at Locks on the other side, Carp's gaze was full of solemnity. The armed color was attached to it, ignoring the Draco next to him, and strode towards Locks. Sue. Just then, a huge rock flew towards me. Carp glared, raised his fist and smashed it. Boom. The rubble scattered, and Cap's body was surging, and he didn't even look at the ski who was attacking him, and his eyes were staring straight at Rocks. Ha ha ha, it looks like I'm not too late. Outside the door, there was another burst of laughter, and Roger, Riley, and Spark came side by side. Roger, are you going to be my enemy, Roger? Roger's arrival surprised Locks, and his eyes flashed fiercely. Locks had also heard a few about the deeds of this newcomer on the sea. It's no use talking too much, Locks. Roger slowly pulled out the short knife at his waist. Everybody here is not going to be a winner. As Roger said this, he glanced upward. Hee, it looks like we've been discovered. For Roger to be able to discover him, it should be the ability to listen to the voice of all things. Ai-chan, find a place to land, they beat them, we should get down to business. As for the wealth in the Valley of the Gods, Arthur said he would not be polite. Total ship collapse, reject Rocks at the start. Author, return Captain. Chapter 64. Rumble. A strong collision resounded in the Valley of the Gods. There is no nonsense between the two parties, and they will start fighting when they meet. Overlord color filled the surroundings, and those celestial dragons were unconscious in an instant. For everyone in the fierce battle, no one cares about the lives of the celestial dragons. Fortunately, there were still people in the Navy who were more concerned and moved the unconscious Draco to a safe place at the first time. Otherwise, I'm afraid that after a battle, it will only be the aftermath, and these heavenly dragons will die here. Roger, we are all pirates, join our Rocks pirates, and the whole world will be subjugated to our feet. Roger and Carp both have clear goals, and they find Locks as soon as possible. In the face of the attack of the two, Locks was still at ease. I'm sorry, but I don't have much interest in something like conquering the world. Brush. The short knife slashed, and the domineering collision made the surrounding space tremble. Not interested, one by one. Arthur wasn't interested, and now Roger wasn't either. The domineering aura around Locks gradually boiled with his mood. Carp leaped to the side, and the attached armed domineering fist blasted towards Locks's head. Don't underestimate me, you two. At this moment, the momentum on Locks's body reached its peak, surrounded by domineering, like a demon descending into the world. Shhhh, this Locks is still as tough as ever. Arthur, who shuttles through the rooms and is looking for treasures, feels the pressure coming from his surroundings and pouts out of his mouth. I wonder what Roger and Carp are going to do. It is estimated that their battle will not be resolved for a while, and Arthur also sped up the treasure hunt process. AI-chan, scan around. All right, Captain, the scan begins. AI's voice came from the communicator, and an invisible fluctuation spread outward. Captain, a lot of reactions have been detected in the room on the left. As soon as AI's words fell, Arthur was already standing in front of a wide door. This material, is it made of sea building stone? Not only can the halo stone make the capable lose their strength, but the basic body also has an unusually hard hardness. The right hand was clenched, and a long knife appeared in the hand. Brush, brush, brush. Several sword flashes flashed, and a gap had been opened by Arthur. I've really found a treasure trove. It was filled with all kinds of riches, glittering with gold. Captain, Captain, we've found a lot of things here, come here. As soon as the wealth in the room was collected, Kiana's voice came from the communicator. I'll be there soon. Meanwhile, outside, the rest of the Rock's pirates confronted the navy. The two sides fight back and forth, regardless of the middle. It can be seen that each of them is just fending off the attack of the navy, and all eyes are on the battlefield of Locks. If Rocks wins, they will naturally show their due value and use all their strength to bring down the navy in front of them. If they fail, they won't be stupid enough to go toe-to-toe with these navies. God knows how many more navies are on their way to the back. This time, in a hurry, Carp was only in the vanguard, and indeed a large number of navies were coming. It is not an exaggeration to say that it is pouring out of the nest. Doing such a thing, even if it is a pile of people, it will kill Locks in the Valley of the Gods. This time, Steel Bone Kong also made up his mind and came in person. Hey! Locks, let's get caught. Carp and Roger teamed up to fight against each other, and for a while they couldn't help Locks. Ha ha ha, you want to beat me, Carp, you're still too tender. Locks laughed, domineering, and his body looked a little taller under the somewhat gloomy sky. That's going to have to be done to find out. In the previous one-on-one against Locks, Carp has indeed been at a disadvantage. But in order to become stronger, he is also training hard every day. Carp is not a devil fruit ability, but he has trained his physical skills to a very strong state. Each attack is with the power of opening the mountain and breaking the mountain. Roger next to him was holding a short knife, armed with a color entanglement, and a sharp sword aura swept around. At the center of the three-person battle, the domineering collision made the space chaotic. Only the shockwave that spreads outward lets those around know how fierce the battle is going on inside. Boom! Suddenly, the sky bell roared, and a dazzling golden light spread outward. This familiar aura made Arthur look up. In mid-air, a figure was like a Buddha descending from the sky, stretching out his palm and slapping it down. People have not arrived, but powerful oppression has come. Boom! With a roar, the space exploded, and Edward clenched his fist to attack the space. This was also Edward's first real shot, because of the arrival of Sengoku, a powerful opponent made him feel a little excited. The power of the shock fruit, under one blow, a crack appeared in the space, and the powerful force spread to all sides. However, that's not all. At the entrance to the Valley of the Gods, two figures emerged. Black Wrist Zifa, Crane. After this period of recuperation, Zifa's body has recovered. Finally arrived. The armed collar was directly attached to the hands, and Zifa had an excited expression on his face. The time spent recuperating in bed was about to suffocate him. Be careful, everybody here is strong. Tsuru is still very wary of the Rock's pirates. Don't worry, you can't die. Rumble. A huge roar spread outward from the Valley of the Gods. Because of the sudden arrival of the warring states and the power of Edward's outburst, the fighting between the two sides came to an invariably halt. Sengoku, are you okay already? Seeing Sengoku appear, Carp was overjoyed. It's okay and it feels better than before. Sengoku clenched his fists, and the power that surged from his whole body filled him with fighting spirit. Where were you before? Martial air is quite secretive. This has always been a doubt in Carp's mind. We'll talk about this later, and solve the problem in front of us first. Sengoku's gaze looked at Locks in front of him. Now that his strength has increased, he has a lot of confidence in facing Locks again. The entire battlefield has undergone some changes due to the arrival of a few people, and all of this is in Arthur's view. Captain. Rita was about to say something, but was interrupted by Arthur. Do you feel it too, Rita, although it is only for a moment, and it is very faint, but I believe that there is nothing wrong. Arthur's gaze was fixed on Sengoku. It's the breath of Honkai. From the power that erupted from Sengoku, Arthur felt a trace of the fluctuation of collapse. Total ship collapse, reject rocks at the start. Author, return captain. Chapter 65. Breath of Honkai. Captain, do you feel wrong? Kiana looked at Arthur with a look of surprise. It's impossible to think about it, this is the world of pirates, how can there be an aura of collapse? Kiana, the captain, and Rita didn't feel wrong, and May noticed it. It's just very faint, and only when he bursts out with all his strength, will it float out a little. Mei Yi's eyes were also filled with surprise, and she looked at Arthur, waiting for his decision. There must be a demon when things go wrong, and now it seems that it is impossible not to participate. Arthur, who originally wanted to watch the play, now has a strong sense of inquiry. How could the warring states be tainted with the breath of collapse? And both arms have been restored. Is there a relationship between the two? These are all things to figure out. In the central square, after the previous battle, it was already riddled with holes. Sengoku, I didn't expect you, an old fellow, to come too. Locke said as he slowly moved his whole body, with an insolent smile on his face. It's not that he hasn't experienced 1 against 2, and now it's just one more person. Locks, do something like this, don't think you'll get out of here safely. Sengoku's gaze was solemn, sweeping over each member of the Rock's pirates one by one. His gaze lingered on Edward for a moment. It's still so strong, the power of the shock fruit. A blow of his own was easily neutralized. None of these people are easy to provoke. Ha ha ha, Sengoku, you've said that more than once, and I'm still standing here. Locks raised his head to the sky and roared, his long black hair fluttered wildly, and the domineering spirit of his whole body burst out, causing dark clouds in the sky. So today, let this be fulfilled here. As soon as the words fell, it was like blowing the horn of battle, and the momentum on everyone's body burst out. The strong momentum is like substance, tearing everything around it. Under such momentum, the weak ones don't even have room to get closer. The impact of momentum stimulates everyone's nerves, and as long as there is a slight movement, it will definitely affect the whole body. Finally, Sengoku took the lead. Warring states in the form of a big Buddha, with a huge body, like a giant, was stopped by a figure when it was about to attack Locks. Edward Newgate. The battle between us isn't over yet, Sengoku. Boom. Before the words fell, Edward had already activated the power of the fruit. The rift that spread in the space went towards the fruit. In the face of such an attack, Sengoku had no choice but to stop and respond. And everyone else has found their own opponents. The situation that had just calmed down was once again plunged into chaos. The group of major generals who had first followed Karp here breathed a sigh of relief. Although their strength is very strong, there is still a bit of a gap compared to the Rock's pirates. Now that reinforcements are coming, the mood is high. And at this time, Arthur was finally about to move. You have to feel it up close to be more confirmed. Edward's battle with Sengoku continued, but suddenly a figure appeared between the two. The sudden appearance of this figure startled the two of them, but the attack had already been sent, and it was not so easy to take it back. Arthur was unhurried by the swift attack, and an ice shield appeared next to him to fend off Edward's attack, while he himself turned to meet Sengoku. In order to feel the subtle fluctuations more clearly, Arthur used an attack of pure power. Boom! The fists collided, and the space exploded. A powerful force swept out, and the rocks that shook up were crushed by the force. It's him, Arthur. Arthur's appearance attracted everyone's attention. The people here have dealt with Arthur more or less a few times, and are quite aware of his great strength. So how will the arrival of this person change the situation of the battle? Everyone's faces were cloudy, and they didn't know what they were thinking. Ha ha ha, Arthur, you still made the right choice at a critical juncture. Come, join me in making the world sound with our names. Locke's words made the faces of the Navy change. If Arthur and Knox join forces, they will be in a very passive position. I'm sorry, Locke, but I'm here for one purpose. Arthur's gaze was fixed on the warring states in front of him. A word that was neither salty nor light responded to his enthusiasm, which made the expression on Locke's face stiffen slightly. Arthur's pirates? Exactly. Edward had always wanted to play Arthur to see how big the gap was between them, but he never found the right opportunity. And now is a godsend. Just as Edward was about to make a move, two slender figures stood in front of him. Rita and Mei. I won't let you get in the way of the captain. Now it's up to me to be your opponent. And Kiana, who was still in the distance, looked at all this with an unhappy face. Because Kiana's strength is not particularly strong now, Arthur asked her to stay where she was. Even though he was eager to participate in the battle, he couldn't help but listen to the captain's words. So I had to sulk on my own. It's you. When Sengoku saw the face of the person in front of him clearly, he couldn't help but be surprised. Sengoku, how did you get your arm connected? If it was connected normally, Arthur would naturally not ask, but the distance was closer, and Arthur could feel that the faint Honkai aura was emanating from Sengoku's arm. It's all thanks to you, and I'm stronger now. Sengoku said, his fists clenched, and his whole body surged with strength, bombarding Arthur. Since I don't want to talk about it, I'll have to figure it out myself. In the face of Sengoku's attack, Arthur did not dodge. Edward has been in the mold for 8 lifetimes, and he was fighting with the warring states. As a result, Arthur intervened sideways, and then 2 more men laid siege to him. One person is a little overwhelmed, let alone 2 people, who are beaten and retreat. What made him feel shocked was that the shock fruit that he had torn apart the space had been greatly restricted in this icy realm. And at the same time, outside the Valley of the Gods, countless warships appeared awkwardly on the horizon, and on the deck at the forefront, a figure stood proudly. Steel bones empty. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Total ship collapse, reject rocks at the start. Author, Return Captain. Chapter 66. Hurry up and carry these Draconians to the warship, and then take them to a safe place. When Cyborg came to the Valley of the Gods, he found that the celestial dragons had been thrown outside, and their souls were about to come out. It's not to blame those navies, the battle is ongoing, and it's already rare to be able to send these celestial dragons to a safe place. Fortunately, we arrived in time, but if it was a little late, the consequences would be really unimaginable. Seeing the Navy carrying the Tianlong people to the warship one by one, Steel Bone Kong finally breathed a sigh of relief. Looking into the Valley of the Gods, the battle fluctuations generated from it became larger and larger, making Cyborgu's face solemn. Suddenly, lightning flashed and thunder roared in the sky, and thunder and lightning poured down. What's going on inside? The Steel Bone Hollow was startled and hurriedly rushed in. In the Valley of the Gods, Arthur's battle with Sengoku is still ongoing. Compared to the first encounter, the strength of this time has indeed improved. But it still didn't pose much of a threat to Arthur. Not to mention other abilities, just the blessing of the armed color and the color of seeing and hearing, not ordinary people can hurt Arthur in the slightest. It turns out that this is the ability to foresee the short future, and it is really useful. For the use of domineering appearance, Arthur is only now exerted. The high-level insight can already foresee the short future. With itself as the center, within a certain radius, you can see what is happening in the next few seconds. However, evasion is not Arthur's purpose, he wants to make Sengoku exert more power. A punch was thrown, and thunder surrounded. With the domineering of thunder and lightning, even the warring states at this time could not remain indifferent. Why? I'm already stronger. The more he fought the warring states, the more surprised he became. With his strength, he still didn't have much power to fight back in Arthur's hands. I can't believe that the power of the Sengoku is getting stronger and stronger, and this is exactly what Arthur wants. Surrounded by Sengoku, feeling the aura of collapse emanating from his wounds, his brow furrowed slightly. This breath is like a rootless ping, getting weaker and weaker. If this continues, I'm afraid it will all dissipate after a while. Arthur's brow furrowed slightly, and he stood in place and fell into deep thought, and the attack stopped instantly. Opportunity. The eyes of the warring states erupted into busyness, and all the power was gathered on the right fist, and it bombarded with the momentum of Mount Tai. Boom! The earth shook. How is that possible? Arthur stood in front of him like an Optimus pillar, fending off his attack with one hand. Who healed your severed arm? Now Arthur is 80% sure that there is definitely a problem in the treatment of Sengoku's broken arm. Do you think I'm going to tell you? In fact, even if Sengoku wanted to tell Arthur, he didn't know what to say. Because he was lying in the sleep pod the whole time, and when he woke up again, his arm was already attached. Not only that, but it feels stronger than before. Since you don't say it, then don't blame me for being rude. Turning his palm into a fist, he bombarded forward, and the warring states took the blow and took several steps back. What a powerful force! Sengoku is still confident in his own strength, but now reality no longer allowed him to think about it, and Arthur's attack struck again. Each attack made Sengoku's body tremble. Damn, is it really going to fail again like this? Sengoku was very unwilling. What kind of monster is there on this sea? Although Lox's strength is strong, he can see the bottom. However, every time he meets Arthur, he has a feeling of facing the abyss. Sengoku, I'm here to help you. A loud shout came from afar, and the steel bones were running as they ran, and the armed color was attached to their whole body. The black armament shimmered with an indestructible light, like King Kong. Two people. Arthur roared, his eyes shining with excitement. With his current strength, it is not easy to meet an opponent of equal strength. A Sengoku is still a little worse, but if you add a steel bone empty, it will be more fun. Thunder. Arcs of lightning flickered around Arthur, making his attacks even more threatening. The sky was covered with dark clouds under the influence of the battlefield below. The rumbling sound was endless. Kuligara. Since they said that they should not get in the way of their captain, then anyone around them should be targeted. Roar. Behind Mei, a huge dragon-like creature soared into the sky. With a gentle wave of wings, you can set off a great storm, and you have 4 abilities: ice, fire, thunder, and darkness. Thunder fell from the sky, and Kuligara's huge body shuttled through the battlefield. Oh my god, what kind of creature is this? Charlotte Lingling's eyes showed a look of surprise, and then burst into surprise. I want to keep it for myself. After finishing speaking, he directly abandoned the navy in front of him, jumped his body, and rushed towards Kuligara. Rumble. A breath of flame mixed with thunder erupted from Kuligara's mouth. Rumble. A huge explosion swept outward. Ha ha ha, obediently become my belonging. I have to say that Charlotte Lingling's defense is so strong. Resisting this attack with your body is only slightly embarrassing. I'm getting more and more fond of you. Charlotte Lingling was not angry, but became more and more excited, and when she wanted to rush up again, a pair of cold eyes looked at her on her back. Holding his right hand high, Celestial Realm Judgment summons lightning bolts from the sky, attacking indiscriminately below. This caused public outrage. The others were fighting, distracted by the sudden attack, and one by one they glared angrily. Brush brush brush. Several cold rays flashed, and Rita came slowly dressed in a blue night moon soul, and a huge figure appeared behind her. And Edward, who was fighting against him, was frozen in ice with the lower half of his body, looking at Rita's back, with a complicated look in his eyes. On the other side, Arthur became more and more excited. How long has it been since he fought with all his might? It's really exhilarating and comfortable. And the corresponding steel bones and the warring states are suffering. Attacks come in waves like waves. At this time, they realized that it was not a good thing for the body's defenses to be too strong. Brush. The ice spread outward, instantly freezing the entire valley and everyone except May, Rita, and Kiana. In the valley, a figure stands tall and dominates the world. Kiana, in the corner, squatted on the ground, drawing circles with a dissatisfied expression. Total ship collapse, reject rocks at the start. Author, Return Captain. Chapter 67. The Valley of the Gods, covered in ice, is as pleasing to the eye as a carefully carved ornament. Freeze everything, and the land falls silent. Hey! A small head suddenly poked out from a distance. Kiana scanned back and forth, marveling at all of this. The captain is really good at that aspect. The small mouth is slightly open, and there are small shining stars in his eyes. With his hands propped up, he jumped out from behind the building where he was hiding. Captain, you're amazing. Kiana looked at Arthur with admiration, but it was difficult to hide the loss in her eyes. At this time, they should fight side by side, and they can only hide on the sidelines. You're going to be very good in the future. Arthur patted Kiana on the head. Click. Click. The subtle sound of the ice shattering was particularly harsh in the silence of the space. Covered in ice, Locke still maintained an attacking stance, starting from his head, and some small cracks gradually appeared. With this soft sound, it seems to have caused a chain reaction. The sound of ice breaking on everyone's body rang out one after another. Boom! Locke's was the first to break free, and the earth-shattering momentum mixed with extreme anger rushed to the sky. Arthur! A roar of rage emanated from Locke's mouth and echoed around, his crimson eyes fixed on Arthur, choosing to devour him. Die! The body rushed out, and the speed of Locke's was extremely fast. This time, Locke's really had a murderous intent on Arthur. Humph! May waited coldly, and controlled Kuligara suspended in mid-air to swoop down. Don't get in the way. Locke's roared, stretched his arms forward, and grabbed Kuligara's head with his palm. But the force sent Locke's body back, leaving a deep furrow in the ground. Boom! After hitting the wall, the rubble on it spilled down, and Kurigala rose into the sky. Yikes! With a roar, the rubble shot out, and Lox came back to life with full blood. And at this time, the others also broke free from the shackles of ice. After seeing the surrounding prospect clearly, everyone was shocked. Almost the entire island was frozen in an instant, and this kind of power was only one of Arthur's abilities. This man is really unfathomable. Everyone looked at Arthur with a mixture in their eyes. Roger raised his right hand and shook it, his eyes showing a thoughtful look. Just when everyone thought that Lox would fight Arthur, a faint voice resounded all around. "Stop it, Lox, let's save some effort and fight the Navy." As soon as the sentence came out, everyone's faces in the Navy changed to varying degrees. If Lox and Arthur fought, they would naturally want to see it. But I didn't expect to be stopped by Arthur at the beginning. So will Lox agree? Much of the Navy's attention was focused on Rox. Lox's attitude determined the situation that followed. "Lox, find out your purpose before you act." Before Lox could make a move, Arthur spoke again. "Take 10,000 steps back, even if you can defeat me, you won't be able to become a world hegemon. But as long as you kill all these navies, then the outer warships and the Draconians will be at your disposal. The world will be in the palm of your hand." Hearing Arthur's words, the look of anger on Lox's face gradually faded. "How do you know?" Steelbone Hollow was shocked. He didn't understand why Arthur would know that those Draconians had been taken by him to the warship. He, of course this is a secret. Faced with the doubts of the Steel Bones, Arthur naturally wouldn't tell him that it was because of the domineering nature of what he saw and heard. "Do you choose to fight me and let the Navy reap the benefits of the fishermen, or do you want to spare some strength to deal with the Navy? Lox, I'm sure someone as smart as you would make the right choice." Arthur's voice echoed around him, and Lox's face grew gloomy. "We're at war with the Navy, and you're the last fisherman, aren't you?" This is what worries Lox the most. The three forces are very strong with each other, and now no one dares to do it easily. "Don't worry, I'm not interested in the boring ambition of dominating the world, so I'll leave here and leave the battlefield to you." After Arthur finished speaking, he ignored the stunned crowd, beckoned to Rita and May, and turned to walk out. Just gone? This is the doubt in everyone's mind, and it makes people a little unbelievable. But seeing Arthur's unrelenting back gradually fade away, the truth is in front of everyone. It's not good, the warship's outside. Steel Gakong seemed to think of something, and hurriedly chased out. And the warring states were afraid that the Steel Bones would not be able to deal with it alone, so they followed. The entire valley fell silent. Why did things change so dramatically? The speed of change is a bit jaw-dropping. Being disturbed by Arthur like this, Lox suddenly felt a little bored, but he was already here, ready to fly. The condensed battle gradually boiled, like a spark thrown into a barrel of dynamite. Suddenly the battle broke out again. And outside the Valley of the Gods, when Cyborg and Sengoku came out, they happened to see Arthur and his party boarding Hyperion. Was there such a ship there when I came? Such doubts flashed in the mind of the Steel Bones, and then disappeared. When he found that Arthur did not make a move on the Draconians on the warship, but gradually moved away, he breathed a sigh of relief. But even so, Gang Gakong was still not at ease, and boarded a warship with Sengoku and followed him far behind. When it is completely out of the confines of the Valley of the Gods, it can be regarded as a stop. A few days later, news came out that shocked the sea. The captain of the Rox pirates was ambushed, and the other members scattered and fled, and the navy was encircling and suppressing it with all its might. The pirates who knew the news all regretted it, and at the same time were even more in awe of the navy. And in a calm sea, Hyperion moved forward slowly. "Captain, these navies don't take us seriously, and they don't even mention us in the newspapers." Kiana held the newspaper in both hands and read it carefully several times, but she didn't find a single word about them, and she was immediately disinterested and threw it on the table. This is also a normal phenomenon. How can the report of the Navy extinguish their own prestige? Arthur shook his head, not caring about this kind of thing, but not at all. Looking at the newspaper in his hand, Yasuo sighed in his heart. This news heralded the end of an era. At the same time, it heralds the beginning of another era. This paragraph is finally finished. The detailed description is too long, and it is not interesting to call back and forth, and it is estimated that many people just hope to get a result. So get it done in a few chapters. As for Juxiao and Xing, they will not appear. Juxiao is because his thinking and the author's ability are really limited, and Xing's words have a bad personality, although it is harmless, but he still can't write. Total ship collapse, reject rocks at the start. Author, return captain. Chapter 68. It's been a few days since the Valley of the Gods event. The scene of boiling on the sea is also gradually calming down. Here sailors may soon forget about it, and only remember in their leisure time that there was once a group of pirates on the sea called Locks. It's just that such a powerful pirate group was still destroyed by the Navy in the end. That's all. Only those who were truly involved in that event would know the horrors of the Rocks pirates. Even if they all went out in the Navy, they would only eliminate Locks alone. The remaining members fled in all directions after the defeat of Locks, scattered throughout the sea, and are currently missing. During the period of the battle with Locks, the Navy had consumed a lot of troops, and it was no longer able to carry out such arrest activities. As long as they don't make too big of a big deal, it is estimated that they will be resigned to it. And the members of the Rocks pirates don't have much friendship with each other, and some only have conflicts of interest. After dispersing, they went their separate ways, and there was little contact with each other. And on a large ship, there are only two people: Charlotte Lingling and Kaido. The two of them didn't look very good on the surface. After all, it was not so easy to break out of the blockade surrounded by the Navy. And Kaido, as an intern, was able to rush out all thanks to Charlotte Lingling. This time thanks to you, Lingling. Kaido gasped for 2 breaths and looked at Charlotte Lingling and whispered. Don't be so polite, just help you for the sake of your more pleasing to the eye. Charlotte Lingling stood up from the stool, dug behind her, and threw an object to Kaido. It's a devil fruit. When Kaido took it, he found that it was the devil fruit in his hand. If you eat a devil fruit, you will have a power that ordinary people cannot match, and it is a secret treasure in the sea. Even if the Rocks pirates crisscrossed the sea, they only got a few devil fruits. This shows how precious it is. Yes, that's the devil fruit. Charlotte Lingling nodded. Give, for me. Kaido couldn't believe that such a precious thing was given to him directly. If you don't want it, you can give it back to me. No, thank you, Lingling. At this moment, Kaido's heart was really full of emotion. You're welcome, it won't do much to me anyway, so you can leave on the next island. Charlotte Lingling looked into the distance, a smile on her lips. You. Are you going to Arthur? Kaido frowned slightly. It's not something you should worry about. Charlotte Lingling snorted coldly, and the entire ship fell silent. Soon, a small island appeared in front of him. Kaido silently got off the boat, looked at Charlotte Lingling's departing back, raised the devil fruit in his hand and bit it. It's really unpalatable. The taste like Chinese medicine spread in his mouth, making Kaido's face unnaturally distorted. But he swallowed it with difficulty, and ate all the devil fruits in 3 or 2 bites. From this time on, Kaido finally embarked on the path of becoming a strong man. And on another stretch of sea, the Roger pirates. How's it going, Captain? Have you found what you're looking for? Riley looked at Roger, who was wrapped in bandages, and walked over with a smile. That's natural, and the Navy still has this bit of credit. Against Lox, Roger was not unscathed, and needed to recuperate for a few days. It's just a pity that after defeating a Lox, there are even bigger obstacles ahead, Captain Roger, the idea that you want to become the king of the pirates. I'm afraid it's a bit difficult to achieve. In the Battle of the Valley of the Gods, Spark saw in his eyes, and the strength of the Arthur pirates is still fresh in his memory. It's definitely an existence comparable to the Rocks pirates. However, Roger listened to Spark's words, but shook his head with a smile. The Arthur pirates are very strong, there is no doubt about that. I'm afraid we can't beat them with all our strength, but it's different. What's different? Spark blinked, a little questioning. Lox is not the same as Arthur. Lox has the ambition to dominate the world, and enjoys the feeling of holding power, which will cause great turmoil to the whole world, so the world government and navy will do their best to encircle and suppress it. Roger took a deep breath as he said this, and the figure of Arthur came to mind. But Arthur was different. Rather than dominating the world, I believe he prefers to be the uncrowned king. From the first time he met Arthur, Roger had a feeling. This feeling is still present today. It should be said that he is worthy of Roger, and he is very accurate in seeing people. Although Arthur has no ambition to dominate the world, he also understands the importance of strength and power. And I've been working hard for it. At the same time, the Navy headquarters did not know how to choose because of one thing. What should Arthur's bounty be? The rest of Lox is at large, and although the Navy will not carry out large-scale arrests, the reward order will still be issued. Most of the bounties are set at a price of nearly 1 billion or so. These are easy to solve, but the problem lies with the Arthur pirates. With the strength of the Arthur pirates, even if the bounty amount is 2 billion, it is not too much. Carp's upper body was full of bandages, and in his heart, Arthur was even more terrifying than Lox, and the bounty must be higher than the members of the Lox pirates. The amount of the bounty is not set randomly, there are many things involved. Sengoku shook his head. A bounty order contains a lot of information and must be treated with caution. If the amount is set too low, it is really a bit of an insult to the name of the Arthur pirates. Even if it is an opponent, you must maintain the most basic respect. Carp's voice still echoed through the room, and the steel skeleton sitting at the front spoke. The world government has issued the latest directives. The reward of the Arthur pirates is not more than 100 million. Even Cyborg Sara didn't understand why the world government would give such an order. 100 million? Even Sengoku's face was filled with some disbelief. We just have to follow the orders given by the world government. In this way, a bounty order that made the Navy headquarters feel a little outrageous was sent out and passed into the sea. Mixed with the bounty orders of nearly 1 billion for each of the other members of the Rocks pirates, the bounty orders of less than 100 million really can't attract everyone's attention. Even if you want to go to the Honkai world, it will be a long time later, at least you have to finish writing the pirate world first. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Total ship collapse, reject rocks at the start. Author, Return Captain. Chapter 69. Captain, look, we're famous. Arthur, who was sitting in the living room, saw Kiana running over excitedly with a stack of things. Captain, look, there's my portrait on it. Rita, May, and the captain have yours too. Kiana placed the wanted notices in her hand one by one on the table, and excitedly pointed to the one with her image. Mei and Rita on the side heard Kiana's voice and couldn't help but come over. Really, it looks like we were filmed when we were in the Valley of the Gods. Mei picked up her portrait, looked at it carefully for a while, and said slowly. Haha, we're pretty well known now. Kiana tilted her head smugly, making Arthur smile uneasily, and picked up his own one and looked at it. Sure enough, the background above can be seen to be in the Valley of the Gods. I didn't expect that in such a chaotic battle, there would be a navy that was specifically responsible for secretly filming such a thing. When I looked down and saw the amount below the picture, I couldn't help but be slightly stunned. 100 million Baileys. Such a bounty can only be regarded as a well-known category in the sea. I'm really cheap, it's only worth 100 million. Arthur really didn't know how to describe his mood at the moment. Kiana, don't get excited, what's your bounty below? What bounty? Kiana's eyes widened, completely unclear about what Arthur was talking about. Captain, Rita's is 80 million Bailey. Mi's is also 80 million Bailey. Immediately, the eyes of the three people looked at Kiana at the same time. Don't rush, you're counting. 1, 10, 100, 1,000, 1,000, 1,000, million, 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 billion. Wait. At first, I didn't think it was anything, but when it reached 100 million, a trace of consternation flashed across Arthur's face, and then even a billion jumped out. This made Arthur a little unable to sit still. Could it be that his dignified captain is even lower than Kiana's bounty? It's completely unreasonable. Let me see your bounty. If Kiana really has more than him, Arthur thinks he can go to the Admiralty headquarters and talk to the Admiral. Receiving the bounty order handed over by Kiana, Arthur glanced at it and couldn't help but roll his eyes. Kiana, is your math taught by your English teacher? It's still a billion, only 10 million Baileys. Arthur slapped the bounty on the table. How is that possible? Look at the captain. Kiana pointed to the amount on the bounty unconvinced. Don't be 1, 2 decimal places don't count, don't you know? Hearing Arthur's words, Kiana was struck by lightning and stood on the spot. €1. 10 million Bailey. Why do I have so little? Is this what you're focused on? Shouldn't you be ashamed of yourself for checking the numbers wrong? Arthur shook his head speechlessly. Captain, it seems that everyone else has a higher bounty than ours. Rita had a stack of bounty orders in her hand and flipped them over one by one. That's right, Captain, Kiana has also found out about this problem, their numbers are so long. It turns out that you look at how much the amount is calculated by length, Arthur couldn't help but complain in his heart. Took the bounty order handed over by Rita, and there were people who knew and didn't know the bounty on it, and the more he looked at it, Arthur frowned slightly. Most of the bounties of each person in the Rocks Pirates have reached about 500 million, of which Edward, Charlotte Lingling, and others are close to 1 billion. Even Kaido's bounty for this in turn reached 300 million. Am I not even as good as Kaido now? Arthur put the bounty in his hand on the table and muttered to himself. Captain, there is a big problem with these bounty orders. The amount of the bounty order is calculated based on strength and danger. And although they haven't done any big harm now, they shouldn't have more than that. Maybe that's what the Navy wants to do. Arthur's eyes flashed with wisdom. The extremely powerful Lox pirates were all wiped out by the Navy, and if there is another pirate group at this time that is not much different from the reputation of the Lox pirates, then it must have a very negative impact on the rule of the Navy. The reduction of the bounty also made many people stop paying attention to the Arthur pirates, which could minimize the influence of this powerful pirate group. As for the after, let's talk about it later. And all this is different from Arthur's guess, but not much different. The current Navy can no longer withstand a large-scale operation like the Rocks pirates. Bounty order. At this time, Kiana suddenly wondered. What are you talking about? Big eyes blinked. I don't understand how this new word popped out of the mouths of the captain and Rita. The so-called bounty warrant is a wanted warrant issued by the Navy to us. As long as someone finds the Navy with our head, they can receive the corresponding bounty amount. Seeing Kiana's little confused look, Arthur couldn't help but explain it to her. Aren't we going to be targeted by a lot of people? Kiana's eyes widened instantly, and her initial joy was swept away. It's really possible for you to say that. For many people, the amount of the bounty corresponds to the strength of that person. We're in a position where we're not up or down, and we're the right target to be targeted. Arthur nodded thoughtfully. Just in time, Miss Ben will beat them all away. Kiana waved her hands, looking high and full of anticipation. But alas, this expectation was exhausted after waiting for a few days and no one came to find trouble. Captain, why hasn't anyone come to trouble us? Kiana lay on the sofa weakly, without any energy. Maybe you're on your way, be patient. The sea is so vast, how can it be so easy to come across people who come to them for trouble? Arthur smiled and opened the system interface. After this period of accumulation, the friendship points above are enough. Open the lottery screen and click on the 10 replenishment. Clusters of light flashed in front of him, and a smile curled into Arthur's lips. Sure enough, everything was as he had guessed. Character shards, 43/30ths, upgradable. Kiana, ready. Arthur reminded him and clicked promote. AHH. Before Kiana could comprehend what Arthur meant, she felt a surge of power from her chest. Streams of white light emanated from her chest, enveloping Kiana and forming a ball of light. The ball of light slowly rose and was suspended in midair. After a while, the light was restrained, and a figure emerged. There have been some subtle changes in the armor on his body, the most striking of which is the gamma particle ray that resembles divine wings behind it. S-Class Valkyrie, White Knight Moonlight. The main character's current abilities are the Top Overlord color, the Advanced Insight color, Foreseeable Short-Term Future, and the Advanced Armed color. You can control the two abilities of Ice and Thunder, and for details, you can roughly refer to Pheasant and Anilu, as well as the swordsmanship that inherited Mei Yi. That's all for now. Total ship collapse, reject rocks at the start. Author, Return Captain. Chapter 70. Bang bang bang. A virtual salute of holograms exploded around Kiana. Congratulations to Kiana Kislana for her great advancement. AI's voice rang out. Kiana, who was suspended in mid-air, was wearing the White Knight Moonlight armor, which was less cute and more holy at the moment. The body fell from mid-air and stood in front of Arthur. It feels great, Captain. Kiana raised her hands and shook them, and she could clearly feel that her strength was much stronger than before. Well, yes, in this way, you can also have a certain amount of self-protection on this sea. Seeing Kiana at this moment, Arthur nodded with satisfaction. So in the future, will you be able to fight side by side with the captain? Kiana clasped her hands in front of her chest and raised her head slightly, her big eyes shining expectantly. I don't want to be the captain of a ship anymore when they deal with the enemy, so I can only hide from a distance and watch. Yes. In Kiana's expectant gaze, Arthur nodded. Yes, that's great, Captain. Kiana hugged Arthur and jumped excitedly. All right, it'll be hard if you jump down again, just don't hold us back. Arthur patted the little head in front of him and soothed Kiana, who was a little overexcited. Don't worry, Captain, Miss Ben will never hold back. Kiana patted her chest hard, looking quite confident. Okay, then let's wait and see. Kiana's strength has increased, everyone is happy, and Rita prepares a sumptuous dinner. After eating and drinking, he came to the deck. The fiery clouds in the sky are red, and the clear water below is reflected in each other, and it looks like a fairyland from a distance. It's beautiful. Kiana and May looked at the scenery and couldn't help but yearn for it. Indeed, I haven't seen such a sunset for a long time, how about we take a group photo? Arthur's proposal was unanimously approved. Buy a camera from the store and put it in front of you, set the time. 3, 2, 1, eggplant. Click. The lights flickered and the picture was already out. I'll see, I'll see. Kiana took the photo in her hand with a lunge. The four people, Arthur, are in the middle, Rita and May are on the left and right, and Kiana is standing in front with her hands like scissors. In the back, the sunset reflects the whole picture, which looks like a dream. Here, one for each person. The camera has a copy function, and you can make many copies after taking a picture. Seeing that Rita and May had been staring at the photo in Kiana's hand, Arthur naturally understood why. I started this function right away, and I sent one to everyone. Holding the photo in his hand, everyone was smiling happily. Captain, can I take a few more shots? Kiana looked at the camera next to her with some eagerness. Absolutely. With Arthur's permission, Kiana picked up her camera and took pictures around the deck, and she really took a lot of good pictures. Huh, Captain, it looks like a ship is coming towards us. As Kiana was looking around, a small black dot in the distance came into view. It's getting bigger and bigger, and it looks like a sailboat. Hearing Kiana's voice, everyone couldn't help but look up. Captain, the man on the ship. Arthur nodded. The man on the boat was all very familiar. Charlotte Lingling. How did she come to this place? As Arthur pondered, the sailboat had come to the opposite side of Hyperion. Charlotte Lingling, it's a coincidence that the vast sea can meet you. Charlotte Lingling was alone on the huge sailboat, and Arthur glanced around, frowning slightly. Hey, we're old acquaintances, so we don't need to be called so outside. Charlotte Lingling put her hands on the side of the boat and threw her eyes away. Arthur could clearly feel that the temperature around him had dropped a lot. We don't know each other so well, let's talk about something as soon as possible. Although Charlotte Lingling is still a big beauty, under the eyes of the three pairs of tigers next to her, she only looks at her nose and nose. It's really ruthless, it's rare for people to come to you with all the difficulty. Charlotte Lingling looks aggrieved, and she is still very interesting at the moment. Although this statement is somewhat exaggerated, it is also true. In order to find Arthur, Charlotte Lingling wandered at sea for several days. If you don't want to say anything, I'll leave. Seeing that Charlotte Lingling's 3 sentences had not yet reached the point, Arthur's patience had gradually disappeared. Actually, I came here this time to cooperate with you, and if there is one more beautiful woman by your side, I believe you won't mind. Saying that, Charlotte Lingling put one hand on her waist and outlined the curves of her figure. I don't mind. Before Arthur could speak, Kiana took a step forward and glared at Charlotte Lingling. Humph, you old ant, don't bother our captain if it's okay. Kiana said as she grabbed Arthur's arm and declared her sovereignty. This guy seduced their captain as soon as he came, and he couldn't bear it. Old ant, what are you talking about, little girl who hasn't even grown all your hair? The corners of Charlotte Lingling's mouth twitched, and her anger instantly churned. Although Charlotte Lingling does belong to the ranks of ants compared to Kiana, what woman would admit that she is old? Humph, the captain likes the little girl who doesn't have any hair, you old ant with all the hair should go and stay aside. Kiana looked at Charlotte Lingling proudly, and the words she said were tantamount to great lethality. You little girl. Charlotte Lingling's face distorted with anger. Do you want to fight? Miss Ben accompanies you. Kiana let go of Arthur and jumped lightly, stepping into the air. The armor on his body changed as it ascended, and a pair of sacred wings spread out behind his back. Light wings unfold. Aiming at Charlotte Lingling, countless gamma rays spread outward from the wings behind her. But no matter how you fly, the target of the attack is one thing. Charlotte Lingling. You. Perhaps she didn't expect Kiana's attack to be so swift. Charlotte Lingling's face changed, and she immediately launched a defense. Boom boom. Dense explosions exploded on the deck. Boom. A large hole was blasted out of the deck, and Charlotte Lingling fell straight down. After the explosion, Charlotte Lingling crawled out of the big cave and heard Kiana's voice on the other side. "Humph, if you want to continue, Miss Ben will accompany you to the end." "Okay, okay, let me teach you a good lesson today." "Enough." Just when Charlotte Lingling wanted to make a move, Arthur snorted coldly. "Charlotte, if you're here to fight, we'll be with you to the end, and if you're here to talk to me and I'll cooperate, there's no need to talk about it, it's impossible." Arthur looked at Charlotte Lingling on the other side, not only amazed by her defense. He withstood Kiana's attack with his body, but he looked very embarrassed, and he didn't suffer any obvious damage on his body. Arthur's words brought Charlotte Lingling to her senses from her anger. Looking at Rita and May next to Arthur, everyone had a malicious look on their faces. Charlotte Lingling is very clear about the strength of these two people. Heroes don't suffer immediate losses. I thought that with my appearance, I could let Arthur cooperate with her, but I didn't expect it. I remember today's events, Arthur. Charlotte Lingling left the boat after a cruel remark. "Valkyries will all appear."